Alfredo, 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 Cheerio, El Buffalo. Sadly, it is time to go. Don't know about you folks, but I can't stand the films of Guy Ritchie, a peer of the realm, exploiting a working class experience he never had or has any chance of understanding, just so he's got a wee career to chat to his private school chums about, other end of the social spectrum. Well done, Vinnie Jones, on the career you've carved out for yourself, but I hate the way he's portrayed as a football hard man when really a lot of his tackles were properly cowardly assaults after the ball had long gone. So I don't have a lot of time for that too ubiquitous phrase, it's been emotional. And yet, how else are we supposed to describe the 6 years Alfredo Morelos has spent at Ibrox? It was emotional because it was love. It was love because it was family. Yes, family. I sat next to Alfredo's mum in the main stand at Ibrox a few months ago. The area a few rows behind me is a kind of complimentary tickets area. It's an overspill from the director's box. There's kind of friends and family of players and ex-players up there, C-list celebrities, and the three seats to my left aren't season ticket seats. Who'd want to sit next to this partner all season? Yes. So there's new people there every home game at Ibrox. And this one week, I'm sitting trying to watch the game. I'm like, this woman sitting next to me is she's like a kind of weird, older, more womanly version of Alfredo Morelos. She's just spitting image. Well, of course, it was his mum. And next to her was Alfredo's partner with the kid on the lap. They can't speak English, we can't speak Spanish, and yet everybody was having a great time. We were having a great laugh. The fella behind me, he was deliberately slagging Alf at one point when he missed a chance on the park, and his mum's turning around giving it to, you better watch yourself, Buster, or whatever that. I mean, she comes from Colombia, so you had better watch yourself. But it seemed like the most natural thing in the world because there's a real family feeling with Alf. He's definitely part of the family, and that's even weirder when you think I've never heard him really properly being interviewed. I mean, I don't know a lot of Rangers TV. Maybe he does lots of interviews for Rangers TV, but I've only seen him like that one stilted English interview on Sky or BT after one. I don't remember what game it was. It didn't really work. The best interview I saw with him was by the HJK Helsinki in-house media team. HJK Helsinki, the Finnish club that we bought him from in the summer of 2017 for around about £1 million. Pedro Caixinha, well done, something you got right, Pedro. Part of the deal was that they would play us in a friendly at Ibrox, and after it, there's a Finnish journalist speaking in Spanish to Alfie and then translating his answers into English for us to watch on YouTube. And that was the best I'd ever saw. And yet, he's such a place in our hearts. Now, I know it's no straightforward. I was talking a previous video about how James Tavernier, I don't like the song for James Tavernier. It's no John off the lyrics that we sing, that the James Tavernier song, not really very memorable. And I think that sums up the attitude towards Tav, because he's kind of split 50-50, splits the Rangers support. Half of us love him, half of us seem to kind of hate him. Whereas with Alfie, he's got two absolutely banging tunes. You know, he's got the Seven Nation Army rendering of his Christian name and his surname, and he's got the Banana Splits theme tune, which I absolutely love. Again, that's part of the family. It's like a Freudian thing. When I was a kid, that's the first TV program I remember as a kid. Used to be lying in my bed on a Saturday morning, I'd hear the Banana Splits theme tune going through in the living room, and I'd get myself through there as quick as possible. Absolutely loved it. But it also is because we've two different songs for Alfie, because he splits us all individual. As individuals, we all feel 50-50. We've felt both emotions about Alfie. As individual Rangers fans, there's times you want to strangle him, and there's times you just absolutely adore him. And in that respect, I think he's like a wee toddler. I grew up with lots of aunties, and there was always, babies around everywhere. And it's the same kind of thing where, see, when he's coming off the park, where he's been substituted, and he's in a total huff. He always hated getting substituted at Alfie. But see if we're like 4-0 up, and he's had a hat trick, and he still doesn't want to give the 17-year-old for the B team a chance to get a goal because he wants more game time. It's adorable. You see the big chubby cheeks of his, you want to go, oh, Alfie, you love it. But see if he's been substituted off because he's been garbage, for 80 minutes, and he's the reason that we're trailing in the game or we're needing another goal to win it, and he's still doing the slow walk. You want to throttle him like an adorable, an adorable toddler, a nephew, or one of your own kids who you absolutely love. But if you spoil them too much, they'll wreck the house. And yes, I do come from an era where members of your family would threaten you with physical violence in a loving way. Alfie just absolutely sent his mental at times. Look, I think that red card earlier this season, Easter Road, was an open resignation letter. That was a definite selling of the jerseys. He definitely wanted to off the park that day, and we needed him badly. He really let us down that day. And he's done that in the past. No, I think probably the worst one was Tynecastle, he didn't turn up for the game at Tynecastle in the Scottish Cup, which we lost because basically he'd been suspended for the big win we had against Braga. And Braga, I think, maybe just because he was back in Colombia enjoying himself, having the break. He didn't want to come back from that. I think there was a bit of the I'm not the centre of attention about it as well. So that was a bad one for him. But mostly, I think Alfie instinctively understood what Rangers needed on two different levels. On the field, he knew it was about Europe. We needed to target Europe to get ourselves back to the domestic, well, basically getting back to be champions of Scotland, which we eventually did. But he also felt the hate. He also knew that this place we were absolutely despised when we get back into top flight. Alfie arrived in the second season. We were back into top flight. Aptly, his debut was against Progress Niederkorn in that total debacle in the Europa League, earliest possible qualifier, and our first time back in Europe after the problems of 2012. That's kind of bookended that game by a 7-1 thumping by Liverpool. But in between times, Alfie helped restore us to being easily the premier Scottish European club of the last 40 years, as if we'd never been away. When you look, we actually played a European final in Seville just over a year ago. That was in the situation when Alfie arrived, and the hatred that we were getting from the rest of the country, although it surprised me, I think I was processing it in the wrong way. Maybe it's something that's shared by other Rangers fans of the same age. I remember us winning the treble in '78. I remember the 9 in a row years. So I had this whole thing of the brickbats and all the insults that were thrown at you, all the kind of paranoia and the accusations from opposition fans. That was just part of the privilege of being a fan of Scotland's premier club. That was a compliment, really. And I liked the Rangers. I liked the dignified silence thing, the rising above and all that. But I think Alfie, so that kind of blinded me almost to the sheer level of vitriol. I mean, you couldn't ignore it. That was coming our way when we get back into the top flight after being in the lower leagues. I thought we'd just be getting slaggings, especially when all the really embarrassing results we were having on our way back to being league champions. And we did get the slaggings for about 24 hours, and then went back to being total hate. Look, we didn't sign a Catholic, we didn't sign a Roman Catholic football player for decades at Rangers. I mean, from the 1920s up until Mo Johnson in 1989. So I get why people legitimately, despised Rangers for years. But I just thought, that'll be part of the reason. They're still hated. People thought we were going to die. We didn't. We were coming back. But Alfie, I was trying to kind of rise above it and just say, well, this is part of the compliment. Alfie knew he's coming for Medellin football. He's coming for football in South America. He's not. If you let this stuff keep coming your way without doing anything, to combat it, you'll get drowned by it. And he became the case in point that proved that. He became the case that proved that point. Getting involved with opposition fans, getting off the park and getting in their faces when he scored, having we fly cheeky off the ball stuff and that, getting in opposition players' faces, exactly the same as Scott Brown would do for Celtic. And yet Scott Brown was held up as a hero. He was held up by neutral observers, supposedly, the mainstream media types, as being a great leader. He was shown character and street smarts, and this is how you dominate the Old Firm dynamic. Alfie's doing exactly the same stuff. He's getting sent off and he's getting pilloried as an embarrassment. He's local. Rangers need to let him go, basically, was what we were getting told by sources outside the club, and all he's doing is responding in kind to what was coming in our direction. From all directions, which was coming to, and don't get me wrong, I'm up for that. We're biggest club in the land. That's what you've got to take on board. But Alfie knew, no, it's all right for even the European players, not just like British players that we had at the club at that time. European players as well. I think we're kind of we're going to behave like the big club again. We're going to put on that strut and the dignified thing. Whereas Alfie knew, no, that's we're going to have to earn it. We're going to have to get back there by earning it. We're going to have to dig deep and get as dirty as our opponents are being. And he did that. And sometimes it went wrong. He wasn't very good. He wasn't good at getting the boot in there. He couldn't leave one on somebody, in a fly fashion. But he knew when he needed doing. He got a chunk taken out his leg by the United player when we played them at Ibrox in 55 season. So next time we played United up at Tannadice, there's another centre half for them putting himself about, putting the boot into our players, and we're struggling in the game. Alfie, clocks him one. Now, he got away with that one on the day. Retrospective ban. It was the cameras totally picked up. It's the pre-VAR days. You couldn't not see it. So he gets a ban for that one retrospectively. But we won the game. Kind of turned the game round. And I think Alfie knew there comes a point you've got to kind of live on the edge. He lived on the edge. And you've got to take it to them in all respects. People were trying to stop you getting back to the top. So I don't have a great problem with the red cards at Pittodrie and what have you. I think it sums it up that he got 3 goals against Celtic, one at Ibrox, one at Hampden, one at Parkhead, one in a win, one in a loss, one in a draw, and he got 29 goals for us in Europe. And I'm talking proper European goals. So even if you want to write off the kind of the goals he got against the so-called minnows from Gibraltar and what have you, his goal scoring was absolutely phenomenal in Europe. He scored 14 goals in European competition before Christmas. That's a unique record. That's an actual UEFA record. Only Alfie could get that particular record. And yeah, I think that the comparison for me, we've got 2 trophies domestically since we come back up through the divisions, and yet we've been at a European final, and we've been to 4 group stages, European competition. Absolutely immense. We're better than anybody else in Scotland and Europe by a country mile. Alfie goes clean through on goals against Celtic at Parkhead. We're winning 2-1. We don't know we're going to go on to win the game anyway. It's getting quite late in the game, but we want to seal it. And he sees the whites of the Celtic supporters' eyes, and he sees the goal, and it's too much for him because he hates them so much. He hates them more than we do. He's so busy thinking about getting in their faces. He misses his chance. He goes in on the goalie. He gets sent off. He gives the old throat slashing thing. But we win the game 2-1 anyway. We're 2-1 up against Rapid Vienna in our first European group stage match at home for over a decade. And Daniel Candeias, that wee back heel flick at the halfway line, puts Alfie clean through in goals. We're 2-1 up, we're hanging on, we don't know we're going to win the game. It's in the balance, and Alfie just slots it away, and the joint goes crazy, and it blows away cobwebs, the like of which I don't want to see hanging around Ibrox ever again. It got us back to feeling like ourselves again. It was a major, immense moment, because in Europe, he would do what needed doing. Steven Gerrard arrived the season after we bought Alfie, but Steven Gerrard's a man who hadn't won a league title as a player, but had won both European trophies and had scored in both the finals that existed at that point, the Champions League and the UEFA Cup final. He was going to target Europe first to get us back to the stage we needed to be at in Scotland. And Alfie knew that. Now, the 4 games we played post-Christmas in that run to Seville, for me, are another kind of bookending to the 4 games that we played in the qualifying rounds. We played 4 qualifying rounds for 2 successive seasons and got through them all to get into group stages for the first time since post 2012. Absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the last minute winner that Alfie scores against Legia Warsaw, it put us into group stages in the second season. The roar that night, or certainly the joy I felt, and the stuff that was going on in the bedlam that's going on about in the stand, is only really equalled by the bedlam that's going on when we beat RB Leipzig in the semi-final of the Europa League a few years later. We almost forget how vital it was that we got our confidence back through Europe and how difficult those games were. He scores a goal away to Osijek. We're playing Croats. We're playing Croatian clubs in these qualifying rounds. We drew with them at Ibrox. We bought Borna Barisic off them. Alfie gets the goal over there in Croatia that wins the game over there. Absolutely a massive result. It's going home and away against Midtjylland in these qualifiers. They become a champion. They're on their way to being a Champions League club. They've got serious money. Alfie kind of blows them away. And then once he gets into the group stages, it's just iconic. The home and away against Young Boys Bern. And in the home game against Bern, he celebrates that goal by giving us the wee apology because he'd missed the penalty in the League Cup final in the previous game against Celtic. He should never have been allowed to take that penalty. As I say, I think he just wanted it so badly against Celtic. It's, it sums it up that 2 of his 3 goals against Celtic came when the stadiums were empty. He didn't have to think about getting in the face of their fans. He should have been allowed to take that penalty at Hampden, but he was playing them off the pitch. He was ragdolling them. He was having a great game. He did that so often without getting a goal, especially in Old Firm games. So we shouldn't forget that. But he scores home and away in Europe against Young Boys Bern. He scores home and away against Porto, massive club Porto, former European champions. Those 2 goals in De Kuip, Rotterdam against Feyenoord, former European champions Feyenoord, absolutely massive club. 2 brilliant headers, a ding-dong match, 2 each. Alfie's taking it to them in one of the most kind of fearsome atmospheres and one of the most fearsome supports. But Alfie has, as I say, got the fearsome attitude. He bangs in 2 goals against them. He goes up to intimidate their intimidating supporters. There's a clock in the corner. I'd never noticed it before. They've got this old school clock at Feyenoord right in the kind of corner. The home end comes round to the main stand. It's lit up from behind, and Alfie was as iconic as that clock that night in that stadium. There's a photograph of him celebrating one of the goals where you can see it behind him. It's something that will stay with me forever. It was amazing that night. Who else to score against? he breaks Ali McCoy's goal scoring record by scoring against Benfica to put us 3-1 up at Benfica in Estádio da Luz, the Stadium of Light in Lisbon. Now, see, even at our height under Walter and then with Dick Advocat, the Champions League, when David Murray was throwing money at it, even then I wouldn't have dared to believe we could be 3-1 up against Benfica in the Stadium of Light. And yet, no, we drew the game eventually, but it was just an absolutely magical moment. Do you think it felt like 2 days before we'd been getting pumped to Challenge Cup semi-finals by Alloa, and there was Alfie making us great again, because he got what it was all about without even speaking any English for half of his Rangers career, at least. I'm so proud that the first of his 11 full caps for his country for Colombia came when he was a Rangers player, and I'm so keen that he finds his ambition again, he finds his fitness again, and wherever he goes for the rest of his footballing career, he gets the happiness that he deserves, because all said and done, you know what I mean? It was emotional, but absolutely love you, Alfie, and thanks for everything, big man. All the best to you.